The town of Lone Pine had seen better days and would see better days again. But on this late September afternoon, it lay quietly in the sun, unconcerned about either past or future. Frank Norton, publisher of the Lone Pine Sentinel, sat in the barber chair while George talked about the old days. The good old days, when a white man could go wherever he pleased, and the trees across the river were just trees waiting to be logged.
Those redskins are pushing us around, Frank. Mark my word. Before they are through, they will be demanding we give them back all of northern Minnesota. The trouble with you, George, is that you are a bigot.
3 dogs performed elaborate greeting rituals at a street corner. A waitress swept the sidewalk outside the Pine Cafe, making the job last. Kermit Jones, the banker, pulled his car into the corner service station. The attendant inserting the nozzle into the tank looked up over his shoulder.
Christ, Kermit, look at that, will you?
The thing in the sky was big and black and very low. It made no noise. It floated, sinking slowly toward the ground. It filled half the sky. George dropped his scissors and lunged for the rifle on the wall. He ran into the street. Norton followed. They came out onto the gravel ridge above the river, and there it was. A great black oblong box spanning the river where the bridge had been. George raised the rifle.
No, George, no!
The rifle cracked. In the same instant, a bolt of blinding brilliance flashed back from the black mass. George flared for a moment, then the light was gone. What remained of him crumpled to the ground, still smoking. The rifle in his hands had bent double, its barrel drooping like wet spaghetti. The blackest thing Norton had ever seen. No gadgets, no antennae, no features of any kind. Just a vast rectangular mass of absolute blackness, spanning the river where a bridge had been. And it had killed a man in less than 1 second. Upstream, in the pool beneath the bridge, Jerry Conklin had been fly fishing, a forestry student working on his doctorate. He had stopped here on his way back to Minneapolis, lured by the promise of big rainbow trout. Kathy had symphony tickets and had been making his life difficult about it for weeks. In mid-cast, the sun went out. A shadow covered the pool. Something struck his fly rod. He heard the bamboo splinter, and the world turned to blackness and fallen. A tendril, thin and flexible, fast as a striking snake, whipped around his chest. The air went out of him. He was jerked upward. He saw for an instant the river far below, the tree line, the distant rooftops of Lone Pine. And then he was inside. Pale blue light, uncanny and faint. Strange shapes that flickered and dissolved before he could make them out. Rows of circular luminosities that watched him like eyes. He could push his hand through them and feel nothing, neither heat nor cold. The air was dry and hot and smelled of something that had no name in any human language. A rainbow trout flopped on the floor nearby. A rabbit crouched against a wall. A raccoon worried at the floor with its paws. The visitor was cataloging Earth's fauna, taking samples.
Hello. Is there anyone here?
No answer. The circular eyes kept watching. The flickering continued. He had worked with trees all his life. He knew trees the way other men knew dogs or horses. And in this alien place, in that faint blue light, he felt something he had never expected. A recognition, not kinship. Something shifted into an alien key, but unmistakably there. This thing was alive, not a machine. Alive the way a tree is alive, rooted in purpose, ancient, patient. And then, with no warning, an idea surfaced in his mind that was not his own. The thought of home. A longing so deep and certain it could only belong to something that had been away from home for a very long time. The tendril came again, and he was thrown. He crashed into a pine tree, grabbed a branch, caught himself. Below him, darkness. Above him, stars. He spent the night on his hands and knees, following a path he could not see, moving toward whatever light morning might bring. In Minneapolis, city editor John Garrison took the call from Norton, listened for 30 seconds, and sent his reporter Kathy Foster north by chartered plane.
Kathy, I hate to ask this of you, but there is no one else. This may be our first space visitor.
If you'll buy these symphony tickets.
$30? That's too much.
They're good seats. Anyhow, that's what you'll have to pay.
By the time Kathy arrived, the visitor had crossed the river and moved into the primitive wilderness area. It was eating trees. Standing close to it, you could hear the deep rumble of ingestion and feel the ground tremble. Every few minutes, its rear section slid open like a garage door and expelled great white bales, compressed cellulose, along with heaps of mulch and debris. It moved without wheels, without visible propulsion, floating an inch above the ground, cutting the pines cleanly at the roots. It had not noticed the journalists. It had not noticed anything.
Basically, we only know that an object fell from the sky near the town of Lone Pine in northern Minnesota. Before dark, the object moved across the river and into the forest area, where it appears to remain. I also have one additional matter to report. Tracking stations have discovered a previously unknown object in orbit about the Earth. The best estimate is that it may measure some miles across. At the moment, it is hanging in a synchronous orbit, somewhere over Iowa. Would we be justified in speculating that it might be a mothership? That, I think, must be up to you, whether you so speculate or not.
The next morning, Kathy came around the plum thicket by the river and found Jerry sitting there in his waders, watching the water. She sat down beside him.
Tell me everything.
He told her. The blue light, the fish on the floor, the alien familiarity that reminded him of trees, the thought of home that was not his home.
I can't prove any of it. And if I could, they'd drag me off to Washington, and I'd never finish my thesis.
The story wouldn't run anyway. No documentation. Lathrop would kill it. It would have been the story of the year.
And no one would believe it.
Some people would. That's worse.
The space shuttle came in on the coordinates the tracking stations had given. The pilot could see nothing through the forward ports.
I don't see a thing. We should be right on top of it.
Then the co-pilot grabbed the pilot's arm.
My God. Do you see what I see? Will you look at that?
The crew of the shuttle saw what was out there, and for a long time, neither of them said another word. The visitor had gotten lumpy. For 2 days it had been a sleek, symmetrical thing, a vast black box eating its way through the wilderness. Then one morning, lumps appeared on its skin. They grew through the day and into the night, while scientists photographed them and wrote notes, and said nothing useful to anyone. The next morning, Kathy was watching when one of the larger lumps split open. From the rupture emerged something 3 feet long, gleaming wet and black, shaped exactly like the visitor but miniature. It fought free of the bud, tumbled to the ground, rolled upright. For a moment it crouched there, shiny in the morning light. Then it wheeled and raced toward the underbelly of its parent and vanished. More buds split. More young emerged, each one an exact small copy of the visitor. Each one raced back under the parent.
It's reproducing.
She had babies. That makes it a she in my book.
Garrison was driving home on Highway 12 after midnight when the moon vanished. Not gradually, all at once. There, then gone. The road ahead fell into darkness, and then the darkness had a shape. He braked and stepped out of the car. He walked toward it. Close to it now, he could see there was no difference between this and the one at Lone Pine. The same absolute blackness, The same vast rectangular form, the same complete absence of any external feature. He reached out and placed his spread hand flat against its side. The hide was hard, but not with the hardness of metal. It was warm. Not the warmth of summer asphalt, the warmth of something living, like touching a man's arm, like stroking a large animal. And with the warmth came something else, a chill that had nothing to do with temperature, a chill of the mind, a brush against something incomprehensibly old and incomprehensibly far away. He pulled his hand back. Then he walked back to his car and drove away. The next day, the teletypes went wild. They had come down everywhere. In the delta lands of the Mississippi, the Corn Belt, the New England Commons, southern cotton fields, airport runways, suburban housing developments. They came down silently, at night, without warning. Some had begun eating trees where they found them, or lumber yards, or in one Virginia suburb, a row of houses. The rest simply settled and waited, floating a few inches above the surface of the earth, doing nothing at all. The tracking stations confirmed that the great mass that had been in orbit was now gone. It had not left. It had come down. At the White House, the debate moved through the night. The president's chief of staff thought they should militarize. The Secretary of State thought they should internationalize. The CIA thought they should classify everything. Dave Porter thought they should tell the truth, as far as they knew it. No one could agree on much. Jerry and Kathy arranged a meeting with Dr. Albert Barr, an exobiologist at the University of Minnesota, one of the few people whose entire career had been devoted to imagining exactly this kind of problem. He listened to Jerry's story without interrupting. When Jerry was done, he asked his questions carefully. The familiarity with trees, was it kinship? Not exactly. And the thought of home, was it Jerry's home? No. Jerry was certain it was not his thought at all.
Here is a possibility. Perhaps you misread what was happening. The visitor was not broadcasting a thought of your home. You cued in on its thoughts, and it was thinking of its own.
You mean the Earth? That it was thinking of Earth as home?
Consider it. It has come from God knows where, over an unimaginable distance, looking for a planet where it can reproduce, find food, live again. And then it finds this, all the cellulose in those forests, all the room, all the life. And it thinks, home. I finally found a home.
So they're not visiting.
That would be my guess.
Outside in the late autumn dusk of Minneapolis, a great black shape drifted slowly over the river. It was one of perhaps 10,000 that now occupied the continent, and none of them were in any hurry, and none of them appeared to be leaving. Deep in the Utah desert, in a dry valley with good sight lines in every direction, the Army set up its test. The visitor selected for the exercise had been sitting in a lumber yard on the outskirts of a small town, eating stacked lumber and doing nothing else. It allowed them to arrange equipment around it without reaction.
Scientists can't get their cameras set up fast enough. Sun's going to be down before they're satisfied. They want everything right the first time. We don't want to make a second try at this.
The sergeant checked his watch. The .30 caliber rifle cracked. The cameras, running at thousands of frames per second, caught what happened. The bullet struck the visitor's hide. The hide indented, not like metal, but like a fist pushed into a feather pillow, like a finger pressed into a cheek. The bullet did not penetrate. Then, in less than a millisecond, the dimple snapped back to its original shape, and a burst of energy slammed back along the exact path of the bullet's trajectory, striking the mounted rifle and melting it. The rifle was a puddle on the ground. The bullet had bounced back a few feet and fallen. The visitor had not flinched.
Our scientists believe the visitor converts kinetic energy to potential energy. It absorbs the shock, analyzes it, then returns it, amplified. The dimple is parabolic, so it reflects the returned energy precisely back to its source. Whatever you throw at it comes back at you harder. A perfect defense system. We don't think it's defense. Out in space, they'd absorb radiation, stray particles. This is a safety valve, built into their biology. They didn't build it to stop us. They don't need to build anything to stop us. The cover on this stays tight.
Stuffy Grant found the dead visitor at dawn. He had been going out early before the tourists arrived, to have the visitors to himself for a while. He walked up to the dark shape and knew immediately the warmth was gone. The hide was cool as clay. He called Norton at the Sentinel. Norton called Garrison at the Tribune. Scientists from Washington arrived within hours.
We can tell you one thing. The structure of this creature is based on cellulose, but not a cellulose we recognize. Not a cellulose from Earth. Whatever this creature is, its basic building material is the same material it has been harvesting from our forests, but transformed into something we have never seen before.
No one had a follow-up question that made any sense. In the capital, someone proposed pest control. Not extermination, just control. Introduce a pathogen into the trees they were eating. Something specifically targeted to disrupt their metabolism.
It's monstrous. We have no real grievance against these things. They haven't hurt anyone. They're just here.
A man was killed in Lone Pine.
After shooting at one, which puts the blame rather squarely where it belongs.
Porter thought about the dimple in the visitor's hide and the puddle of metal where the rifle had been, and thought perhaps Alice had a point. He also thought about the fact that there was nothing the Army or anyone else could do about any of this, and decided that telling the truth about that particular fact was something that would have to wait. At the airport in Minneapolis, the group that called themselves the Lovers had been there for 3 days. They sat in the grass at the edge of the runway, cross-legged, peaceful, their eyes on the visitor that squatted on the tarmac. They believed that love was a force, that if you loved something hard enough and honestly enough, it would know, it would respond. On the morning of the 4th day, the visitor lifted off, not explosively. It simply rose slowly and drifted upward, and then it was not there.
We failed. It felt our love. I know it did.
The security guard who heard this said nothing. The reports came in from everywhere, not just Minneapolis, across the country, across the continent. The visitors that had been resting in populated areas were leaving, all at roughly the same time, in the same unhurried way, as if a signal had been given that no instrument could detect.
Second phase? You don't know that. No? But what else do you call it? My own thinking, not official policy, is that the visitors are unlikely to leave this soon. They have found something here they needed. What I believe they have done is relocate. They have moved to areas where they are less visible. They're hiding. I wouldn't use that word.
Jerry Conklin drove to the Iowa farm where 101 had been guarding the plowed field.
She's still there. Still won't let me near that field. Tried again this morning. She came right at me.
May I try?
He walked across the hayfield toward the great black bulk of the visitor. It sat there, unmoving, in the October light. As he approached, it made no move. He walked to within arm's length and stopped and put his hand against the warm hide. Nothing. No reaction. It simply allowed him to be there. He patted it, feeling vaguely foolish. He talked to it, knowing nothing would come of talking. He told it about the thesis he wasn't finishing and about Kathy and about the pool below the bridge where he had been standing when his life changed. The visitor said nothing. It sat in the autumn light and was warm and made no sign. That night he came back. He did not plan to. He drove away, stopped at a gas station 3 miles down the road, and turned around. He parked on a gravel township road and walked across frozen stubble fields until he found the dark bulk again, moon-limned against the October stars. He leaned against it and caught his breath. The tendril came. This time there was no terror, only the familiar blue light, the watching eyes, and then the flood. Not words, not images, something more like weather. A front moving through him, carrying information the way a storm carries electricity. He had no vocabulary for what he received, but one thing was clear. He was being shown a place, a river, an island. He came back to himself sitting on the ground beside the visitor, which was dark and patient and warm. He drove to the nearest town with a phone booth and called Kathy.
Goose Island, on the Mississippi near a place called Dick's Landing. Something is there. Something important. Come now. Come as fast as you can.
In the Tribune newsroom, the wires carried nothing. The phones were quiet, and the editors sat in the conference room and acknowledged there was nothing to put on page 1. Then the phone rang. It was Kathy. She was already on her way south. They pushed through the last of the underbrush and the forest fell away, and they were standing in a clearing. 3 visitors sat in the grass at some distance from one another. Between them, in long straight rows, stood what appeared to be cars.
Jerry, Dot, and Joan.
I see them.
They were shaped like cars. They had doors, seats, steering wheels, windshields. But they had no running gear, no wheels, no engine housing, no exhaust system. They floated, each of them, a few inches above the ground. Red, yellow, green, gray, deep metallic blue, parked in rows as neat as any dealership's lot. A bud split open on the nearest visitor. From the rupture emerged something elongated, gleaming wet, taking shape as it worked itself free. Yellow. Data. When it had separated from the bud, it drifted a few inches, oriented itself, and moved precisely into line at the end of the nearest row.
They come in every color.
Those can't be cars. Why would they make cars?
Because they're paying us. We gave them the cellulose, the trees from our forests, and now they're giving us something back. Simple barter. You give me something, I give you something. They just didn't know to ask us first.
If they can make 100 cars in a week with 3 visitors, and there are thousands of visitors.
Enough for everyone. For the whole country. These things don't need roads. Don't need gasoline. They can fly. The visitors read us, Kathy. They know exactly what we want.
Is that the same thing as giving us what we need?
It took about an hour to work out how to operate them. Things to push, like airplane controls. And the vehicles responded smoothly, veering away from any obstacle before you could react. They flew out over the river and turned north, following the Mississippi toward Minneapolis, and the autumn trees blazing on the bluffs below them were very beautiful.
They're making cars, Johnny.
Kathy, don't kid me. Not now.
They are making cars. We have 2 of them. We flew them from the island. They float. They fly. They're easy to handle.
You flew a car.
You heard me.
Garrison stood on the Tribune roof in the evening wind and looked at the 2 vehicles, and then at Kathy, and then at the vehicles again.
Oh, God. Remember what I said. Iron hatchets. Our Stone Age is over. What happens to the auto industry? What happens to the people in the Detroit factories? To the service stations? To the oil companies? To the highway construction industry? To the car loan finance companies? To everyone whose job is connected, even at 3 removes, to the automobile. And then, when they've made enough cars, what do they start making next?
No one answered. The president declared a business holiday the next morning. The stock exchanges were closed. Banks limited withdrawals. The dollar fell against every other currency in the world.
The situation, while unprecedented, is not necessarily a cause for panic. We are monitoring developments.
Outside the briefing room windows, two luminous vehicles that were not quite cars floated above the White House lawn, glinting in the afternoon sun, waiting for nothing in particular. Frank Norton had not heard about the cars. He had been in the wilderness for 3 days, paddling his canoe upriver through the silence, and news from the outside world had not found him. He was thinking about the sound of water over rocks when he rounded a bend in the river and saw the visitors. 5 of them, clustered in the forest ahead of him, looming above the pines. He pulled the canoe up on the gravel beach and walked into the trees. What he found first was a house. A somewhat lopsided house, leaning slightly to one side, like a building whose foundations had shifted. The front door was open. He went in. The kitchen was nearly normal. A stove, a refrigerator, cabinets, and a sink. The burner heated when he turned it on. The tap ran water. Down the hall, 3 bedrooms with small wrongnesses in their proportions he couldn't quite name. He went through the whole house and came back out. He stood on the steps, trying to put his finger on what bothered him most. Then he knew. There was no bathroom. The second house stood 4 square and true. He checked every room. 4 bedrooms, a den, a kitchen, a living room and dining room. 2 bathrooms. Everything worked. Stove, refrigerator, toilets, water. The floors were carpeted. Where windows should have been, drapes hung over blank walls. The house hovered half a foot above the ground, suspended as the visitors were suspended. And then he understood. They were practicing. A first attempt, lopsided, no bathroom. A second attempt, better, but they had forgotten the windows. He was still standing there when the third house came. It floated out from among the visitors, moving slowly, silently, in the dusk, and positioned itself in line with the other 2. It stopped. Lights came on inside it. Through the windows, Norton could see a dining room table set with glass and china and 2 tall candlesticks. In the living room, a television set glimmered. Chairs were arranged around it. A curio cabinet filled with small figurines stood against one wall. He moved closer. In the kitchen window, movement, shadows, back and forth, as if someone were in there at the stove taking up dinner to carry to the waiting table. Norton cried out. He turned and ran. The news reached Washington 2 days later. At DeSoto, Wisconsin, a crowd of 2,000 people had gathered where visitors were distributing cars. There had been a panic at the riverbank, a surge toward the water, a rowboat had capsized, and 3 people had drowned. In the White House, the president's chief of staff told the president that the housing industry would face the same crisis as the auto industry, possibly worse. There were more people employed in residential construction than in automobile manufacturing.
They're showing us something. First cars, now houses. They're showing us what we want.
Maybe. Or maybe they know exactly what we'll accept, what we'll sell our souls for. They read us, Kathy. They read us like a book.
Is that the same thing?
He looked out the window at the dark country passing below. I don't know, he said. I genuinely don't know. Norton's story reached Garrison on a Thursday afternoon. Garrison read it once quickly, then read it again carefully, then sat with it for a while. He called Norton.
Frank, the houses. Yes, I keep thinking about those shadows in the kitchen, how they moved, like someone cooking, like someone getting dinner ready to put on the table. They made cars. Now they're making houses. They're getting better at it with every try. The lopsided one, the one without windows. And then, that third one, perfect. And those shadows. For the love of Christ. Are they making people too?
Garrison sat with the phone in his hand for a long time after Norton hung up. He read the last paragraph of the story again, the paragraph about the shadows in the kitchen, the question Norton had asked. Then he picked up his blue editorial pencil and drew a line through it. A clean, deliberate line. The kind of line that meant, "This does not run." He filed the rest of the story on the front page. The last paragraph he put in his desk drawer. Outside the newsroom windows, a few of the new vehicles drifted past in the evening light, red and yellow and green, making their unhurried way across the city. They needed no roads. They needed no gasoline. They were patient and silent, and there were more of them every day. And in the wilderness, 5 visitors stood in the dusk between 3 houses, and the lights were on in the third house, and someone or something was moving in the kitchen.